So yeah, just a quick thank you for everyone coming to listen to what we've both been up to this year. Since my sabbatical last year, as Larry said, my passion for developing my own Welsh language skills and those of others within my context have really strengthened. So I'm going to share with you just sort of the ways in which my school have developed teaching and learning, Welsh language teaching and learning within our context through the use of structured topics and resources. Okay, so I'm hoping that what you see in here today will sort of help support yourselves and your schools and give you some useful ways and ideas to improve Welsh language levels within your contexts. So I teach in New Park Primary School, which is a three-form multicultural school within inner city Cardiff. 90% and over of our pupils have EAL. I've taught a range of year groups within Key Stage 2 mainly, but currently now teach year 4. And as Larry said at the beginning, I am the Welsh lead and have been since 2016. But a big part of the role that was missing really up until my sabbatical last year was that my language skills were lacking to really drive the subject forward. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what I've been doing since finishing my sabbatical and getting straight back into the classroom and developing Welsh within my school, and then looking at sort of the next steps for driving Welsh forward within my school context. Okay, so as lots of you already know, the sabbatical is an amazing programme, an immersive programme to help develop Welsh, not only your own Welsh language skills, but also how to teach Welsh. And that's something that I really got out of it. It's not only my own Welsh language skills developed, but it gave me a completely different outlook on how to really effectively teach the Welsh language. During the summer term of the course, we were set a project to work in our school, so back once a week, to develop an element of Welsh within our schools. So my initial focus on developing Welsh within my school was to start developing Welsh across the curriculum. And I wanted to use the teaching strategies and the methods and the resources I developed on the course to help other teachers plan and use Welsh across the curriculum in line with the new curriculum for Wales. And the Welsh across the curriculum element of teaching was a target identified for improvement when we were first awarded the Silver Siarti Iaith Award back in 2021. I began the project by conducting a language audit of the staff within my school, from teachers to support staff to admin staff, to really get a better picture of the language levels of the staff at my school. I created Google Forms for staff to complete, which took elements from the language competency framework, which you can see on the screen, to really best audit their language levels. And by doing this, it really gave me a clearer picture of not just the language levels, but confidence of the staff within my school. I should have really started this before deciding on the focus of Welsh across the curriculum, because lots of staff actually audited themselves around the foundation language level. So I felt that the focus of my summer project really needed to be on the quality and effectiveness of discrete Welsh lessons before then taking them across the curriculum. After discussions with the senior leadership team, we reviewed the project focus and decided to target support within year 4, where there was a newly appointed member of staff that year, as well as a member of SLT to support the project. During my time on the sabbatical, as well as gaining a lot of knowledge and experience from our incredible tutors, we also had several outside speakers present to our cohort on strategies and resources to effectively teach the language, such as Dr. Gianfranco Conti, as Danielle already mentioned. And also we had Mateus Maurer and Anne Jones come to present, who had previously been on the sabbatical course and shared what they had been getting up to in their schools when they got back after the course. So learning from these speakers, I started to use and adapt the different strategies and ideas, such as the use of sentence builders, to focus on developing Welsh within my school. So the agreed project actions then, when I returned back to school once a week in the summer, was to develop simple, adaptable resources for teachers to use within Year 4, and then model and teach these approaches so that they can see how it's done, what a good Welsh lesson looks like, and then to team teach with them and sort of review the plans and the resources they've been using. So prior to beginning the project, I'd already started to put together a PowerPoint of some of the games and activities that I'd really enjoyed and knew that other teachers within my school and the pupils would enjoy using. So to support Year 4 summer Welsh topic, I planned a sequence of lessons on the topic of ysgol, so school, and I created a bank of games and activities for them to teach from. So it had a menu of games and activities, which you can see on the screen, and each of these boxes then had easy clickable links to take the teachers to that particular activity, which was referred to in the planning. And this PowerPoint was also supported by the topic sentence builder. I created a sentence builder for the topic ysgol, and the patterns were taken from the Central South Consortium scheme of work and the language continuum to ensure progression. And then the sentence builder focuses on teaching the language chunks. So just as Danielle said, to use as a scaffold for pupils within the lesson to refer to throughout the sequence of lessons. I returned back to school once a week for the summer term and supported the teachers and learners to develop Welsh. And throughout my time back there in the summer, I spent the time planning a sequence of lessons with the teachers, modelling and showing them how to teach and use the sentence builder and resources to build on the pupils and staff's skills each week. And here are some of the outcomes discussed with staff and pupils of the project. So confidence levels improved each week of pupils and staff. Improved engagement due to the introduction of new, fresh, interactive fun games to use in lessons. Each week, the motivation levels of pupils increased and the activities and games were really made accessible for all kinds of learners. Staff felt that the resources were really easy to use and were adaptable for future language topics. Both pupil and staff's attitudes to Welsh improved, and this was a biggie for me to really look at. And staff now know what a good language lesson looks like, and pupils were really excited to have Welsh each week. Pupil recall improved due to the focus on the drilling and flooding of the key sentence patterns and vocabulary, and not rushing ahead to the producing part. So since completing the sabbatical, it was agreed then that I would continue working in Year 4, and I was back in class teaching my own Year 4 pupils. So the focus then when I was back in school was to continue to support and develop Welsh language teaching and learning by planning with my Year 4 colleagues and developing structured topics and resources for each Welsh topic in Year 4. So we'd already done the Summer 2 topic, and now it was kind of keeping on going with that structure to plan the rest of the topics within that year group. So last autumn, at the beginning of the year, I planned the first sequence of lessons for our autumn 1 topic, which was salwch, illness. And I used and adapted the resources shared by Matthias Maurer using the EPI approach that Danielle has already spoken about. And I loosely used this structure, the structure of this, and each lesson focused on building the language skills of pupils each week and slowly built up to the producing stage. And from my Google form language audit with the staff, I also included some other questions just generally about Welsh lessons within their classes. And a majority of teachers felt that they felt rushed to produce evidence in books and rushed to that producing stage. So I believe my approach to developing structured topics is an effective build-up of skills so that pupils feel confident and able to recall patterns and vocabulary and are then ready to produce and don't feel rushed into producing just for evidence purposes. So over the year, as a team, we collaborated and planned more Welsh topics. My colleagues then felt as the year went on more and more able and confident to plan them with less support from myself. each topic, as you can see here, was around 6 or 7 lessons over a half term, and the lesson sequence began with lots of flooding of the key vocabulary using a sentence builder to teach the language chunks, and lots of drilling games and activities. I would also have a phonics focus at the beginning of each topic as a warm up for each lesson that follows. I'll go into a little bit of detail about this on the next couple of slides. The lesson then, after drilling and flooding the language, would move on to focusing on sentence structure, from forming sentences, from positive to negative, looking at different persons and the run of the verb, for the children to really understand the structure and meaning of sentences. As pupils continue then to work on sentence building, I would then move on to applying their language skills to begin producing. So, for example, planning and creating scripts. And then after the producing stage, I'd then begin wrapping up the topic with an assessment that would then feed back into my daily Welsh in my helper heddiw time, which is something my school has, with 10 minutes of Welsh a day. And that would then sort of aid the recall throughout the year, so nothing's parked on. There's a lot of content to get through, as we all know as teachers, and feeding this back into helper heddiw really helped with the recall so that nothing was parked up when we moved through the topics. And I'll go into some detail of the types of activities that fit with each lesson focus over the next couple of slides. So alongside each structured topic, as I mentioned previously, we created sentence builders with the focus sentence patterns and vocabulary. When I first introduced these at the beginning of each topic, I make sure to emphasize to the pupils that these sentence builders have all of the key patterns of vocabulary for the whole topic. And when we first introduce them to the pupils, it's really important to model how to use them. It's not just a word bank, but it's a tool to aid language learning. Earlier, I mentioned that I introduced mini phonics lessons when beginning a topic in Welsh. So prior to starting the lessons, we identify the focus sounds that appear in lots of the vocabulary on the sentence builder to ensure that pronunciation from the get-go is accurate, to ensure that no errors or bad habits are formed. I then do this at the beginning of each lesson over the half term to really drill these sounds and introduce any other sounds that potentially come up throughout the topic that need to be drilled and gone over. Alongside each structured topic, along with a sentence builder, is a PowerPoint full of games and activities that link back to the lessons that are created. And as mentioned previously, the PowerPoint has a menu page, and each of these boxes is a clickable link that takes the teacher to the relevant slide that's referred to in the plan. A big believer in work smarter, not harder. So these PowerPoints are then used as a template to edit and recreate for each of the topics we then taught throughout the year. When teachers click on an activity on the menu, it takes them to a simple how-to page, so teachers understand the game or activity. My current Year 4 colleagues are familiar with these games and activities, as I had modelled them and taught alongside them during my summer sabbatical project when I was back in school. So just like the pupils in our classes, it's really important to model and show these activities to the teachers as well. So when beginning a series of lessons, it's important to drill and flood the focus language from the sentence builder. And one of our favourite games within my class to do this is Gwrandewch ac ysgrifennwch y rhifau, so listen and write the numbers. So as you can see on the screen, we've got some of the key subjects within school and also some sentences around that topic. So this can be adapted so that it's simple to begin with, just a few key words or phrases that pupils have to listen to, and then they write the order in which they hear them. And this can also be made slightly harder with using full sentences as pupils develop their listening skills, or even have to translanguage between listen to the Welsh and having to write down the numbers of the English sentences that appear on the board. Another activity that my class enjoy is translation race. So this is an effective game that requires the pupils to use the sentence builder. It can be used as a whole class activity or in small groups and pairs, depending on how well the pupils do use the sentence builder. Again, this can be made simpler or harder depending on the pupil's abilities, where they can just translate simple words. that they flash up on the board and have to use a sentence builder, or it could be full sentences. And this can be done on their mini whiteboards or by calling out as a whole class game. And I found that as the pupils grew confident at using the sentence builders, they became more able to translate without using it. So that as they became familiar with the patterns of vocabulary, they relied less then on the sentence builders. As pupils begin developing their listening skills, we move on to the drilling games that require pupils to speak and practice their pronunciation. So playing Guess the Sentence is a great game for this. And again, all of these can be adapted to make it simpler with keywords or phrases, and moving on to full sentences like you can see on the board. So the teacher thinks of a sentence from the board and writes it down secretly, and then the pupils take it in turns to guess the sentence and practice their speaking and listening skills to ensure they don't say a sentence that's already been said. So the rest of the class are engaged if they're not trying to guess, by writing down the number of the sentences that they hear. As pupils become more familiar with their key patterns and vocabulary, we then move on to sentence work and understanding structure and meaning. Here's another favourite activity within my class. This is jigsaw translating. Pupils have a numbered grid of sentence chunks, as you can see on the board, on the slides, and then varied activities which require them to manipulate and use those language chunks and make sense of them. So here, task one, pupils are given the codes and they then have to write out the sentences that the codes represent, so using the different chunks. Task two is then translating the sentences that they've just decoded. Moving on then to task three. So instead of decoding, they have to work out the code for the sentences written, some in Welsh to English and some in English to Welsh. And this is a great effective activity to build on their sentence structure skills, because it's important to ensure that they don't just learn from rote, and they're able to really piece together sentences to make sense of them. Another great, just simple activity is fill in the blanks, llenach y bwlcau. As pupils become more familiar and confident with sentence structure, they should then be able to work out what language chunks are missing from the key sentence patterns. And again, this can be easily adapted to be made easier or harder. For example, providing the word bank, as you can see on the screen, with the right amount of words, or even giving them too many words within the bank to choose from. As pupils' language skills are building and developing, the producing element can then begin as pupils become more confident at using and understanding the topic language. And just here, I've provided a script template for pupils to collaborate on to change the underlined parts of the script and create their own using the sentence builders. So this was for the Ysgol project. And we work in mixed ability groups within our primary setting also. They then use their editor template to create a text map, which uses simple illustrations or simple words or initials to help pupils remember the key language chunks and sentences. And then they practice reading the script from their text map and as a prompt before then recording their group script on Seesaw to sort of review together as a group. At the end of every topic, I conduct an assessment. They include a variety of skilled tasks to assess pupil understanding of key vocabulary and sentence patterns. Each assessment begins with a couple of listening tasks. So the teacher reads out simple words or sentences that pupils tick what they hear, or are asked to translate what they hear. Other assessment activities then include matching the correct Welsh word to the correct English word, matching sentences with the correct illustrations, moving on to simple reading comprehension assessments to check understanding, as well as filling in the blanks to check sentence structure, and then put sentences in the correct order. And these activities then help to assess how well pupils have understood the key language patterns taught from the topic, and then feed into our future Help Heather lessons to aid future recall as we move on through the topics. So through a structured approach to each topic and a clear build-up of language skills, my Year 4 colleagues feel much more confident to follow and deliver Welsh lessons, and found that the PowerPoint especially that went alongside the overview and the sentence builder was foolproof and just really easy to use and move through. After team teaching and collaborating on planning, staff feel confident and able to plan other Welsh topics and adapt the PowerPoint for other topics without not without my help or without me doing that. They felt confident to do it themselves. But most importantly, I believe, is that the attitudes towards learning the language has changed by both staff and pupils. Their attitudes, engagement and motivation levels improved greatly. And I conducted listen to learners assessments in the autumn term and then again in the summer with the same group of Year 4 pupils. The group of pupils progressed from showing adequate Welsh language levels within the autumn term to now in the summer term, good with elements of excellence. So after a really successful year in Year 4, what's next for my school? So as a year group, now that we've planned, resourced and taught a variety of Welsh topics and key language patterns from the continuum, we'd really like to continue with this with the next cohort of pupils. So there's very little movement of the teachers within my school next year. So this gives us in Year 4 the opportunity to teach these topics again and use the same effective teaching strategies to a whole new cohort of pupils. I plan to support other year groups with developing structured topics and resources, but that will depend on time given to developing this in other year groups. Ideally, I'd like to support Year 5 to continue using the same teaching methods and strategies that the Year 4 pupils are already familiar with. Also this year, just to note, alongside support in Year 4, my school received funding for me to work with the CSC. So I've been working with Mateus, Maura and other schools on a project to develop Welsh language teaching and provision across the consortium. We've collaborated on creating instructional videos to show what effective language teaching and learning looks like within our school context. I'm not sure Mateus, how much I can share about this project yet, but hopefully this will be available for other schools to view and use as a guide to develop Welsh in English medium primary schools and see what other schools are getting up to. So that's me finished.